I walked into Romano's Steakhouse at exactly 7:47 p.m., my hands trembling as I pushed through the heavy oak doors. The reservation said Lane Family Celebration, and my stepmother Diana had personally texted me the invitation that morning. I debated coming for hours, knowing my father's birthday dinners always ended badly for me. The private dining room buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses. I spotted my father immediately, Richard Lane, standing at the head of the table in his tailored suit, holding court like always. My brother Tyler and sister Natalie flanked him, their faces flushed from champagne. I was 3 steps into the room when my father's voice boomed across the space. Avery's a lost cause, she'll never amount to anything. The laughter that followed felt like knives. Tyler nearly choked on his drink. Natalie covered her mouth, her shoulders shaking. 20 guests turned to stare at me, frozen in the doorway like a deer caught in headlights. My father's eyes met mine. For one brief second, something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe embarrassment. Then his expression hardened. Diana smiled at me from across the room, her expression unreadable. I turned and walked out, my vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall. I made it to the parking lot before my father caught up with me. His expensive shoes clicked against the asphalt as he approached, and I could smell the whiskey on his breath. Avery, wait. Why? I spun around, my voice cracking. So you can humiliate me some more? He straightened his tie, his face reddening. You're being dramatic. It was a joke. A joke. You called me a lost cause in front of everyone. Well, what have you accomplished? He gestured dismissively. You're 32 years old, working temp jobs, living in that shoebox apartment. Your siblings have real careers, real lives. You're just dead weight. The words hit harder than any physical blow could have. You know what? His voice dropped lower, colder. I cut you from the inheritance 5 years ago. Tyler and Natalie got theirs already. You should be grateful I let you come to family events at all. Maybe you should focus on serving people who actually work hard instead of expecting handouts. I stood there, speechless, as he walked back inside. Something inside me cracked, not broke, but cracked open. And through that crack, something new began to emerge. I was done begging for his respect. My studio apartment looked even more depressing than usual when I stumbled through the door at 9:30 p.m. Bills covered the kitchen counter. Overdue electricity, insurance, credit cards I'd maxed out trying to keep up appearances at family gatherings. I collapsed onto my secondhand couch and let myself cry for the first time in months. The anxiety that had been my constant companion for years tightened around my chest like a vice. My family had always mocked it, calling me fragile and too sensitive. My father once told me anxiety was just an excuse for lazy people. I'd lost 3 jobs in 2 years, not because I was incompetent, but because panic attacks had made it impossible to function in high-pressure environments. Each failure had been ammunition for my family's ridicule. My phone buzzed. Through blurred vision, I saw a message from Carmen Rodriguez, a social worker I'd met during a brief volunteering stint last year. Hey Avery, we're short volunteers this month. Any chance you'd want to come back to the youth shelter? The kids really connected with you. I stared at the message for a long time. Then, without overthinking it, I typed back, yes. I had no idea that single word would change everything. The Riverside Youth Shelter smelled like industrial cleaner and hope. I showed up the following Saturday, wearing jeans and an old sweater, feeling more like myself than I had in years. Carmen introduced me to 15 teenagers who'd been placed there temporarily. Most avoided eye contact. One girl sat alone in the corner, sketching in a notebook. That's Zoe, Carmen whispered. 16. Been through 4 foster homes. Don't talk much. I sat down next to Zoe, not saying anything at first. After 10 minutes, she spoke without looking up. They're gonna send me back. Back where? Wherever. Doesn't matter. No one believes I'll be anything anyway. Her words echoed my father's from 2 days earlier. I looked at her sketch, a detailed drawing of a building with wide windows and the words safe space written above it. That's beautiful, I said softly. What is it? A place for kids like me, where people actually care. She finally looked at me, her eyes old beyond her years. It's stupid. It'll never exist. I took out my own phone and opened the Notes app. Tell me more about this place. By the end of that day, I had pages of notes. Not just from Zoe, but from 3 other kids who'd joined our conversation. That night, I started sketching my own building. Not just a shelter, a youth empowerment program. I returned to the shelter every weekend for a month. On my fourth visit, an older woman in an elegant coat walked through the common area with Carmen. She stopped when she saw my sketches spread across the table, surrounded by teenagers adding their ideas. "May I?" she asked, gesturing to the papers. I nodded, nervous. She studied them for several minutes, then looked directly at me. "I'm Margaret Hale. I built the Hale Foundation 30 years ago. Started with nothing but an idea and a borrowed desk." My heart raced. Margaret Hale was a legend in philanthropy circles. "These are good," she continued. "Raw but good. What's your story?" I hesitated, then told her everything. My family, my struggles, my father's words. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she pulled out a business card. "I'd like to mentor you, and I'm prepared to offer you a $15,000 grant to launch a pilot program." Zoe grabbed my hand under the table. "Really?" My voice barely worked. "Really? But you'll work harder than you ever have." "Deal." I nodded, unable to speak. That night, I registered the Empowerment Lane Foundation as a nonprofit. Margaret had said I needed a name that meant something. Lane, my family's name, would finally stand for something good. 3 months into the pilot program, which was running out of a rented community center room, I made the mistake of mentioning it at Sunday brunch. Diana had insisted I come, and I'd foolishly thought maybe things had changed. Tyler laughed so hard he nearly knocked over his mimosa. "You started a charity? You can barely manage your own life." My father barely looked up from his phone. "It's a phase. She'll quit when it gets hard." Natalie smirked. "What do you even know about running an organization?" Only Diana seemed interested, asking pointed questions about my funding sources, program structure, and target demographics. I should have recognized the predatory gleam in her eyes. 2 weeks later, Carmen called me panicked. "Did you know someone's launching a youth program called New Horizons Initiative? Their model is identical to yours. And the founder is Diana's nephew, Brandon." My hands shook as I pulled up their website. Every detail, from the 3-phase mentorship structure to the peer support circles, had been copied directly from my grant proposal. The proposal I'd shared with my family. Tyler posted on social media. "Proud of my cousin Brandon for his innovative youth program. Unlike some people, he knows how to actually execute ideas." I sat at my tiny desk, staring at my laptop screen, feeling defeated. Then I remembered Zoe's words. "No one believes I'll be anything." I picked up the phone and called a lawyer. The lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Patricia Chun who worked pro bono for nonprofits, reviewed my documentation. I'd copyrighted my program curriculum and trademarked my foundation name weeks earlier, following Margaret's advice. "You've got them," Patricia said simply. "Send the cease and desist. They'll fold." She was right. Brandon's program shut down within 72 hours. Diana called me screaming about family betrayal, but I hung up halfway through. Then something unexpected happened. A reporter from the local news station, who'd been covering the plagiarism controversy, called and asked to interview me about my work. The segment aired on a Thursday evening. It was only 3 minutes long, but it showed footage of our program. Kids laughing during group sessions, Zoe talking about her dreams, me explaining our mission to help young people who'd been told they weren't good enough. By Friday morning, my email inbox had exploded. Small donations poured in. $20 here, $50 there. By the weekend, we'd received over $8,000. Margaret called, her voice warm. "This is just the beginning, Avery. Get ready." I stared at the donation tracker on my laptop, watching the numbers climb, and allowed myself to believe her. 6 months later, I signed a lease on a real building, nothing fancy but ours. The Empowerment Lane Foundation had its own home, a renovated warehouse space with classrooms, counseling rooms, and a massive common area. I spent weeks decorating the lobby myself. The centerpiece was a wall of photographs featuring the 43 teenagers who'd been through our pilot program. Each photo included their first name and a quote about their dreams. Zoe's read, "I'm going to college, and I'm going to be the one who proves them all wrong." On opening day, an unexpected visitor arrived. Mrs. Patricia Kowalski, my 5th grade teacher, walked through the doors looking older, but somehow smaller than I remembered. "Avery?" Her voice wavered. "I saw the news story. I had to come." I tensed, remembering how she'd told my parents I'd never catch up academically, and suggested holding me back a grade. "I need to apologize," she continued, tears in her eyes. "I failed you. I gave up on you when you needed support. I'm so sorry." Her apology didn't erase the damage, but it loosened something in my chest. Before she left, she handed me an envelope. I nominated you for the Regional Community Impact Award. You deserve recognition for this. The award ceremony took place in a hotel ballroom filled with nonprofit leaders, politicians, and donors. I wore a second-hand dress Margaret had helped me find, my palms sweating as they announced the finalists. I sat alone at a table near the back, trying to look confident. Then I saw them. My father, Tyler, and Natalie walked in, dressed in expensive clothes, smirking as they scanned the room. They took seats near the front, and Tyler pointed at me, saying something that made them all laugh. My heart sank. Of course they'd come to watch me lose. And the Regional Community Impact Award goes to Avery Lane, the Empowerment Lane Foundation. The room erupted in applause. I stood on shaking legs and walked to the stage, barely processing the weight of the crystal trophy in my hands or the warmth of the handshake from the mayor. As I returned to my seat, I passed my family's table. My father's smile looked like it had been painted on. Tyler's jaw was tight. Natalie stared at her phone. Only Diana met my eyes, and something dark flickered in her expression. I should have paid more attention to that look. 2 weeks after the ceremony, donors started receiving strange emails. The messages claimed to be from my assistant, apologizing for mismanaged funds and program irregularities. They asked recipients to redirect their donations to alternative organizations. I had no assistant. Patricia traced the IP address back to a corporate server, Tyler's marketing company. I called an emergency meeting with my small board of directors. Margaret sat at the head of the table, her expression steely. We respond with complete transparency, she said. Financial audit, public statement, direct outreach to every donor. The next 72 hours were brutal. But when we released our audit showing that 93% of donations went directly to programs, and when donors started responding with messages of support rather than suspicion, I knew we'd survived. Better yet, 3 major donors increased their contributions, disgusted by the smear attempt. Tyler's company name appeared in the news, not favorably. Several of his clients quietly ended their contracts. That night, I made a decision. It was time my family saw exactly what I'd built, not through news stories or secondhand information, but face to face. I was done hiding. The annual Lane family Christmas gathering was held at my father's estate, a sprawling property he'd bought during his company's peak. I hadn't planned to attend until Margaret convinced me. Go in power, she'd said. Show them who you've become. I arrived in a car provided by one of our corporate sponsors. Nothing ostentatious, but nice. The valet looked surprised when I stepped out. Inside, the usual crowd mingled, aunts, uncles, cousins, business associates. Conversations stopped when I entered. I wore a simple but elegant dress, and carried myself differently than I had a year ago. My father approached, his smile not reaching his eyes. Avery, surprised you came. I was invited. Tyler and Natalie joined us, their expressions carefully neutral. So, this little nonprofit of yours, my father said, loud enough for others to hear. Is it doing well? Very well. We're expanding to 2 additional locations next month. His smile tightened. That's good. Actually, I wanted to ask you something. He lowered his voice. Tyler's between opportunities right now. Any chance you could hire him? For the family's sake. I looked at Tyler, who couldn't meet my eyes. I'll think about it, I said, then walked away, leaving them standing there. I didn't look back. The expansion happened faster than I'd anticipated. By spring, we had 3 centers operating across the region, each tailored to specific needs. One focused on foster youth, another on teenagers dealing with family emotional abuse, and the third on young people transitioning out of homelessness. Our staff had grown to 23 people. Zoe, now 17, worked as a part-time peer mentor while finishing high school. The programs worked. We had data showing improved mental health outcomes, higher graduation rates, and increased college enrollment among participants. Margaret called me one morning in April. Don't react dramatically, but I nominated you for the National Youth Advocacy Fellowship. It's extremely competitive. I didn't want to mention it until I was sure you'd be a finalist. Anne, you're a finalist. They're sending a film crew next week. I sat down heavily in my office chair. The fellowship came with $50,000 in funding and national recognition. Avery, are you still there? I'm here. Margaret, a year ago I was working temp jobs and getting mocked at family dinners. And now you're changing lives. Get used to it. The news crew arrived on schedule. They wanted everything. Interviews, facility tours, success stories from participants. They wanted to know what inspired me. The interview aired on a Sunday evening during a nationally syndicated program about social entrepreneurship. I watched it alone in my apartment, my stomach in knots. The interviewer, a sharp woman named Victoria Pierce, had pushed deeper than I'd expected. What inspired the Empowerment Lane Foundation? She'd asked. I'd paused, considering my rehearsed answer about seeing gaps in youth services. Then I'd look at the camera and told the truth. I grew up being told I was worthless, that I'd never amount to anything, that I was a lost cause. My voice had remained steady. I built this for every kid who's heard those words and believed them, to show them, and myself, that those words were lies. I never mentioned names, never pointed fingers, but I knew my father would recognize himself. The phone started ringing within minutes of the broadcast. Margaret, Patricia, Carmen, donors, media outlets requesting follow-up interviews. Then my father's number flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. 20 minutes later, Tyler texted, "Dad wants to talk to you. Now." I was pouring tea when someone pounded on my apartment door. I knew who it was before I opened it. My father stood in the hallway, his face purple with rage. "How dare you?" he shouted, pushing past me into my apartment. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" I told my story. I never mentioned your name. Everyone knows. My business partners saw that interview. They're asking questions about my character, my judgment. He jabbed a finger at me. "You dragged our family name through the mud." I built something with our family name. Something good. "You made me look like a monster." I told the truth. His hands shook. "I'm losing investors because of you. People are canceling contracts, questioning deals we've had for years. You've destroyed everything I built." "I didn't destroy anything. You did that yourself. You will publicly apologize. Tomorrow, you'll do another interview and clarify that you were exaggerating, that you were just an oversensitive child who misunderstood." "No." The word hung in the air between us. "What did you say?" "No. I won't apologize for telling my truth. I won't protect you from the consequences of your own actions." His face went from purple to white. "You ungrateful. Get out." "This isn't over, Avery." "Yes, it is." I walked to the door and opened it. After a long moment, he left, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. I closed the door and leaned against it, my whole body trembling. Not with fear, but with something that felt almost like freedom. Over the next month, whispers reached me through various channels. My father's company was struggling. Layoffs. Delayed payments to vendors. Investors pulling out. Tyler called me 6 times in 1 week. I didn't answer. Natalie showed up at my office unannounced, looking tired. "You need to fix this." "Fix what?" "Dad's business. He's falling apart. The company's dying. That's not my responsibility. He's our father. He told me I was dead weight. He cut my inheritance. He spent my entire life telling me I was worthless." I kept my voice level. "His business problems aren't my fault or my concern." She left without another word. My father started calling daily. I blocked his number. He sent emails. I filtered them to a folder I didn't read. Then Diana called from a number I didn't recognize. "Avery, please. He's desperate. He needs help. He needed to be a father. He chose differently. He made mistakes. He made choices. So am I." I hung up. Part of me felt guilty. But a bigger part, the part that had been beaten down and dismissed for 32 years, felt something else. Peace. In June, I received an unexpected call from Thomas Bradford, a former board member of Lane Industries, my father's company. "Ms. Lane, I have a proposition for you." We met at a coffee shop downtown. Thomas was in his 60s, professional and direct. "Your father abandoned a community development project 3 years ago, a mixed-use building that was supposed to include youth services. The building's been empty ever since. The city's threatening to revoke our permits." He slid papers across the table. "We want you to take it over. Finish what he started, but do it right." I looked at the address. My breath caught. This building. It's where your father used to bring potential investors. Where he'd talk about his vision for the community while, frankly, treating his staff terribly. Thomas met my eyes. "Several of us remember him mocking your career choices in that very building 2 years ago. We were there. Why offer this to me? Because you're doing what he only pretended to care about. And because the irony is perfect." I signed the contract that afternoon. The building was larger than I'd expected. 4 stories of untapped potential in the heart of downtown. I walked through it for the first time with my operations director, taking notes and envisioning possibilities. In the lobby, someone sat behind the old security desk. I froze. Natalie looked up, her eyes red-rimmed. She wore jeans and a plain sweater, nothing like her usual designer wardrobe. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "Working. Thomas hired me as temporary front desk staff while you transition the building." Her voice was flat. "Dad fired me 3 months ago. Tyler too. The whole company's imploding." "I'm sorry." "Are you?" She laughed bitterly. "You destroyed him." "He destroyed himself." We stared at each other. Finally, she spoke again, quieter. "I need this job, Avery. I have rent due and no prospects. Please don't fire me." I studied with my sister, really looked at her for the first time in years. She looked exhausted, scared, and human in a way I'd never seen before. "We'll see how it goes," I said finally. "Professional behavior only. No special treatment." She nodded, relief flooding her face. As I walked away, I heard her whisper, "Thank you." Over the next weeks, the truth came out piece by piece. Lane Industries was bankrupt. My father had been leveraging debt against projected earnings for years, making increasingly desperate deals. When my television interview raised questions about his character, several major partners had withdrawn. Tyler called from a new number I hadn't blocked yet. "I need a job. Any job. I have a mortgage, Avery. Send your resume to our HR email." "You're seriously going to make me apply?" "That's how it works." Diana stopped by the new building, looking smaller somehow. "Your father's selling the house. We're moving to a condo." I didn't respond. "People are saying you're responsible for his downfall," she continued. "People said a lot of things about me too. Didn't make them true." She left without arguing. But the rumors persisted. Family members I barely knew reached out, some sympathetic, others accusatory. The narrative split along predictable lines. Either I was a vindictive daughter who'd destroyed her father's life, or I was an inspiration who'd overcome family abuse. Neither version felt completely true. I'd simply refused to keep protecting someone who'd never protected me. Then a letter arrived at my office. Expensive stationery. My father's handwriting. It contained a single line. "I'm requesting a meeting. Please." The word "please" looked foreign in his handwriting. The restaurant he'd chosen was modest, nothing like the places we'd met before. I arrived 15 minutes early and watched him walk in, shocked by how much he'd aged in 6 months. He sat down across from me without his usual commanding presence. Tyler and Natalie flanked him, both looking uncomfortable. "Thank you for coming," my father said. I waited. "I want to apologize." The words came out stiff, rehearsed. "I was too hard on you. I didn't understand what you were going through." "What do you want, Dad?" He glanced at Tyler, who nodded encouragingly. "I'd like to partner with your foundation. I have experience in business development, donor relations. I could bring value to your organization and rebuild my reputation at the same time." There it was. "You want access to my donors," I said flatly. "It would be mutually beneficial. Whose fault is your situation?" He blinked. "What? Your company failed. Your reputation is damaged. Your investors left. Whose fault is that?" "Market conditions, bad timing, some unfortunate." "No. Try again." His jaw tightened. Tyler interjected. "Avery, he's trying to apologize." I asked him a question. We sat in silence. Finally, my father spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's my fault. And the things you said to me over the years? Calling me a lost cause, dead weight, worthless. I didn't mean. Were you wrong?" Another long pause. "Yes. I'll think about your proposal," I said, standing. "I'll let you know." I left them sitting there and walked out into the cool evening air. But I already knew my answer. I met with Margaret and my board of directors the following week. The new building, which we'd named the Empowerment Lane Center, was nearly ready to open. We discussed expansion plans, funding strategies, and community partnerships. Then I brought up my father's proposal. Margaret listened carefully, then pulled out our foundation's mission statement. "Read the values section." I read aloud: integrity, accountability, protection of the vulnerable, empowerment through authentic support. "Does partnering with your father align with those values?" she asked gently. I thought about the teenagers who came to our centers, kids like Zoe, who'd been dismissed and overlooked. Kids who needed to see that success came from genuine work and authentic values, not from manipulation and shortcuts. "No," I said. "It doesn't." "Then you have your answer." That night, I drafted a different kind of announcement. Not a rejection letter, but something bigger. The Empowerment Lane Foundation was expanding again, this time with a flagship headquarters that would serve 500 young people annually. We had the funding. We had the building. We had the team. We didn't need my father's reputation or his connections. We'd built something real without him. The grand opening of the Empowerment Lane headquarters happened on a bright Saturday in September. The renovated building gleamed in the sunlight, its facade covered with a massive banner reading, "Everyone deserves to be believed in." Inside, we'd created something extraordinary: classrooms with the latest technology, counseling centers designed for privacy and comfort, art studios, a computer lab, a library, and a massive multipurpose room where Zoe was currently helping younger kids with a mural project. The dedication ceremony drew over 300 people. Local politicians gave speeches. Donors mingled with staff and participants. News cameras captured everything. I stood at the podium to give my speech, my hands surprisingly steady. This building represents a simple truth: no one is a lost cause. Every person has potential waiting to be recognized, supported, and celebrated. I paused, looking out at the crowd. We built this for anyone who was ever told they weren't good enough, smart enough, or worthy enough. This is your space, your home, your proof that those words were always lies. The applause was thunderous. Afterward, as people toured the facility, I noticed familiar faces in the crowd. My father's former employees, people I recognized from company events, were everywhere, many wearing lanyards identifying them as applicants for our open positions. Then I saw their names on the interview schedule: Tyler Lane, Natalie Lane, Diana Lane. My family wanted to work for me. The interview process was professional and fair. I recused myself from directly interviewing my family members, letting our HR director and department heads make the decisions. But I read their applications. Tyler's was surprisingly humble. He acknowledged his role in trying to sabotage the foundation, apologized in writing, and explained he'd learned more from losing everything than he'd ever learned from his father's success. Natalie's application included a letter. "I spent my whole life following Dad's lead, including treating you terribly. I was wrong. I'd like the chance to be part of something real." Diana's was brief and professional, applying for an administrative position without mentioning our family connection. The HR team recommended hiring all three, but at entry-level positions appropriate to their actual relevant experience, not their former titles. "They'll be working under supervisors younger than them," our HR director warned. "Some with less education. It might be humiliating." "That's their choice to make," I said. They all accepted the positions. On their first day, I called a meeting with my siblings and stepmother. We sat in a conference room, them on one side of the table, me on the other. "You'll be treated like any other employee here," I said. "No special treatment. No shortcuts. You'll earn advancement through work, not names or connections." Tyler nodded. "We understand. One more thing. This foundation was built on honesty and accountability. That applies to everyone, including family. If you can't commit to that, leave now." None of them moved. "Then welcome to the Empowerment Lane Foundation." As they filed out, one last person appeared in my doorway: my father. He looked different from the last time I'd seen him. Thinner, grayer, wearing an off-the-rack suit instead of his usual custom tailoring. "Avery, may I speak with you?" I gestured to a chair. He sat down heavily. "I'd like to apply for a position." "What kind of position?" "Whatever you'll give me." His voice cracked slightly. "I've lost everything. The house is gone. The company dissolved. I'm living in a one-bedroom apartment and working part-time at a consulting firm." He looked at his hands. "I need work. And I need to be part of something that matters." "Why here?" "Because you built something I never could. Something real." He finally met my eyes. "I was wrong about you. About everything. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to do something good with whatever time I have left." I studied him for a long moment. This broken man bore little resemblance to the father who'd called me a lost cause. "We have volunteer positions available," I said finally. "Not paid. Not leadership. Supporting staff, helping with facilities, assisting participants. It's humble work." His face paled. "You want me to work under you?" "As a volunteer. I want you to work with us. Whether that's acceptable to you is your choice." He stood abruptly, anger flashing across his face, the old Richard Lane breaking through. "Me? Volunteering? Taking orders from people half my age. Yes. We stared at each other. Then slowly his shoulders sagged. When do I start? My father began volunteering the following Monday. I'd assigned him to facilities support, cleaning, organizing supplies, setting up rooms for programs. I watched from my office window as he carried boxes, mopped floors, and arranged chairs. Staff members who didn't know who he was treated him like any other volunteer. Those who did recognize him gave him a wide berth. He showed up every Tuesday and Thursday for 3 months. I rarely spoke to him during that time, but others did. Carmen mentioned he'd been helpful during a crisis when a participant had a panic attack, staying calm and getting supplies quickly. One of our counselors noted he'd repaired a broken shelf without being asked. Then Zoe sought me out one afternoon, looking thoughtful. That older volunteer, the one who works Tuesdays? What about him? He asked me about my college plans. Really asked like he cared. Then he helped me practice for my scholarship interview. She paused. He told me his daughter runs this place, and that she's the smartest person he knows. He said he wishes he'd realized it sooner. I couldn't speak for a moment. Is he your dad? Zoe asked quietly. I nodded. He cried a little when he was talking about you. I thought you should know. That evening, I found my father in the supply room, inventorying art materials. He looked up when I entered. We're hosting a gala next month, I said. Anniversary celebration. I'd like you to be there. He simply nodded, then quietly said, Thank you. The anniversary gala transformed our headquarters into something magical. String lights, elegant decorations, 200 guests including donors, partners, participants, and staff. I'd spent weeks preparing my speech, but standing at the podium, looking out at the crowd, different words came. 3 years ago, I was told I was a lost cause, that I'd never amount to anything. I found my father in the crowd, standing near the back, wearing a borrowed suit. I believed those words for a long time. They shaped how I saw myself and my future. The room was silent. But here's what I've learned. The people who tell you you're not enough are usually struggling with their own inadequacy. And their words only have power if you let them. I gestured to the space around us. This foundation exists because I stopped letting those words define me. Because I decided that being dismissed and overlooked qualified me perfectly to help others who'd experienced the same. I paused at the wall of photographs, now containing over 300 faces. Tonight, we're dedicating this building to everyone who was ever told they weren't enough. This is your proof that you are. That you always were. I unveiled a plaque, the Empowerment Lane Center, founded on the belief that no one is a lost cause. Not one person. Not ever. The applause felt like thunder. Later, as people mingled, I found myself standing with Margaret, watching my family work the event. Tyler in the catering area, Natalie greeting guests, Diana coordinating logistics, my father quietly clearing tables. How do you feel? Margaret asked. I watched my father stop to help a participant carry a heavy box, saw him smile at something Zoe said. Noticed the way he moved through the space with none of his former arrogance. I feel like I finally proved him wrong, I said. Not just about me. About what matters. Cameras flashed throughout the evening, capturing everything. In one photo that would appear in newspapers the next day, my father stood at the edge of the frame. No longer the center of attention, no longer commanding the room. Just a man who'd finally learned what his daughter had known all along. That worth isn't measured by wealth or power or family name, but by the lives you touch and the good you choose to do. I didn't need his recognition anymore. But watching him finally understand what I'd built, seeing him be part of something that actually mattered, that was better than any apology. Because I'd built something he never could. And in doing so, I'd become someone he'd never imagined possible. No one was a lost cause. Not even me.